I need to talk about Helldivers 2. It's a game that's just been fresh on my mind because of the release of its new huge update, along with a release on Xbox for the very first time, adding a huge amount of new players, into the ecosystem of this live service world. And live service is a term which I don't particularly like, but I feel like with Arrowhead Studios and Helldivers, they've created, I think, the leading example of what an evolving online game should really be. And I have a huge amount of love for it because it offers that level of escapism, right, which I think we all seek for, a game that we can kind of switch our brains off and have some dumb fun. And that's what in a lot of ways the first game was, and not a lot have played it. I actually did on my PS Vita of all platforms, which I highly recommend everyone should go and try, because it's an underrated console that not really many people gave a good shot. But it was ported to PS Vita at a point, and it was actually very similar premise with the satirical element. Core gameplay loop was pretty much the same, of a cooperative experience of shooting aliens and extracting, essentially, except it was from an isometric point of view. And I think that was such a core element, which changing from that to a third-person perspective upon a surprise sequel, which I'm so glad we got, was a massive difference maker in making Helldivers 2 the huge commercial and critical, in a way, success that it really is today. I don't think a lot of people predicted just how big this game would get, and I think that's fair to say, judging by its early server issues, which have long since been ironed out now. Sony definitely didn't see it coming, but I'm sure they're glad it happened, because the game is a massive success, and it deserves to be so. Because at the end of the day, I feel like one of the most important elements of any game that studios, developers should always prioritize is the core gameplay loop. It's why games that are live service, which is why it's even more important to have this factor, right? Games like Destiny, I've spoke about this before. I love Destiny and Destiny 2 for all of their faults, because of the fact that the core gameplay loop in terms of its shooting is, in my opinion, unparalleled. Helldivers definitely follows suit in that regard, because its gunplay is so satisfying across the board in every facet. The enemies are fun to shoot, but most importantly, the sound is perfect. When you're ripping through bugs and robots and aliens with a heavy machine gun, it feels weighty. It feels like you can hear, and every bullet shredding through armor or flesh feels weighted. It feels purposeful and powerful. And I think that's what keeps players just like myself coming back. And I said earlier about it being live service done right, and there's so many different facets to that. And one of which is the, I think, perfect element, which I don't think any other game has really done at all, or to this extent at the very least, and that's the game master mechanic. And if you don't know, or you haven't been into Helldivers, essentially we as a community, as a player base, are working together to spread democracy across the galaxy in an evolving world. And essentially what that means is the developers have control over the overarching plot and narrative of the world. In the same way you'd have live events in Fortnite, we have the same things, but in Helldivers, but in a lore-accurate and lore-friendly way that actually can impact the players and the loot and rewards that they get as a community. Like, for example, most infamously, I think when the game launched, there was a planet called Malevolent Creek. Those who know definitely know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, it was essentially Space Vietnam is probably the best way to put it, because at the time we as Helldivers were grossly underprepared in terms of what weaponry to bring, what ordnance to use, and everything in between. And it ended up being a brutal and bloody affair that left a lasting impact on the community. And the game masters and the developers recognized this and built some extra stories down the line around it, and also offered special apparel to those who fought at that point in time. There was a special cape to honor the fallen, essentially. So it's little details like that, and that's just on the smaller scale. On the bigger scale, there was a big black hole event. A planet got blown up by a black hole due to our decisions. Again, I'm not as well versed as some of the other players might be in this regard, but this concept alone that they actually had in Helldivers 1, but of course it's been perfected since, has allowed such a constant, it stops the core loop from becoming too repetitive, and is always offering something new. And I feel like that's such an example that many developers can take from. And there's, on a monetization philosophy, I think you could say they're very much the same in a lot of ways. I spoke a couple videos ago about how I love, in sort of the days of old, without battle passes per se, where we had stuff like Halo Reach, where you'd buy a game and you could earn everything in it simply by just playing and leveling up and being able to customize your Spartan over time. And while Helldivers does have these battle pass systems, they are earnable and unlockable in game. Just through playing, you can earn the super credits, which is the currency needed to purchase the battle passes, which you have the gear, the equipment, the stratagems, etc., within them. I do wish the grind was a little less oppressive, because it does feel like you are pushed to pay sometimes. But it's a step in the right direction at the very least, in an era of monetization within this industry that I love, which feels so predatory and, you know, just designed to suck as much money out of you as possible. You know, I mentioned that in the skate video, talking about how I don't like the free-to-play live service model. Same with stuff like Fortnite and its excessive use of battle passes and stuff. Helldivers does adopt a similar approach, but it's a step in the right direction, which I'm very much grateful for. And on top of the game master stuff and all of these incredible design elements, I feel like on a branding perspective, it's really the tip of the iceberg that excites me, because if you don't know, there was just recently collaborations with Killzone and, more importantly, a game which I absolutely adore and spoke at length out just recently on the channel, Halo 3 ODST specifically, because now you can unlock the armor in Helldivers. It's an awesome collab which needed to happen, and I'm so glad it did, because that game holds a special place in my heart, and so does Helldivers 2 and the first one. You know, I think it's just so refreshing to see, you know, mainstream, and I say mainstream because this doesn't happen too often, co-op experiences really pushed to the forefront. I almost thought, should I say, that was an era gone by. You know, I've talked about this at length before, but, you know, I think probably 15 years ago, when I was growing up, co-op experiences were quite a big thing with stuff like Left 4 Dead. You know, I grew up playing that game, which is very much a similar premise. Stuff like Deep Road Galactic in recent memory have had great success as well. You know, 4-man experiences, you know, where you have to work together as a team, typically in a shooter format. And it's so good to see that, along with just the general co-op space and the idea of teamwork and collaboration becoming even more prevalent now in the sort of the 20s period. I'm so grateful for it, and I can't wait, truly, what Helldivers and Arrowhead Studios do next, because, you know, with this evolving world, with this evolving game, new updates, new patches, new features, the sky is truly the limit. And I'm so glad that we got a sequel. I could never have even dreamed it would have reached the heights that it has, and I'm so excited for what's next. I really want to just be positive about it, because although it is being published by Sony, and that is a bit of a stain, because they tried to meddle with the game in terms of needing a PlayStation login, which caused a lot of backlash, rightfully so, not that long ago. We've kind of passed that now, and I think we can look ahead towards hopefully a long-lasting life for a rare live service game, which I really have a soft spot for. Thank you so much for watching me waffle, listening to me waffle each and every other day, let's say. And there's so much more stuff to come. If you have any comments, questions, things you want me to talk about, things you want to talk about, as I always say, this is a place to share the love for the games that you and myself adore, the industry that we absolutely adore, and everything in between. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Have a good one.